Hey, this is Jason McHugh from Electric Apricot, and you are watching Crash and Bleed.
Hey, are you going to Burning Man? Bury your toes in the desert sand. Ain't no man for to tell you.
So, in our last chat, you mentioned crap TV, but we didn't really go into detail. Is that one of the things that you just jumped into, like, right after you parted ways with Matt and Trey?
Yeah, I mean, it was like this organic emergence. When I was not working on the South Park show, I needed to get the next thing going for me. And I brought in my friend Glasgow Phillips, who was the most talented writer I knew from high school. My sister ended up joining the company, and we hired this couple from Boston who are these web experts. And this really like amazing creative team emerged that was ready to attack .com 1.0 and the emergence of streaming video, which again at the very beginning it was crap. The quality was horrible. You could barely get anything to actually work, and when it did, it didn't look great. So that's why we named ourselves Crap TV, which stood for Certified Renegade American Product. And we were also big onto e-commerce and merchandising, and so Cannibal was the first thing that we were merchandising, because that was now launching itself as the stage play, and then the print was touring theatrically as well. But really, we'd seen The Spirit of Christmas, the short that led to South Park, become this viral video, first via VHS and then online. And so part of Crap TV's mission was to basically develop filmmakers, put them up on the web, and then try to bounce up into a TV show. So we were like this, basically like a web TV pilot events company, attacking .com 1.0 with like a very kind of punk rock perspective. We were doing a lot of skate videos. We were doing a lot of street comedy. I was embarking on my journey to Burning Man. I went to Burning Man in 1999, right when the company was starting, and that led to a lot of crazy development with some actual crazy people. Like our dearly beloved friend Timmy the Woodsman, who was instrumental in influencing the character Timmy in the early days of South Park, among other things. And this is we were doing the Lap Dance Film Festival. We also did the Can You Dig It Film Festival in Cannes, France, which was again like party meets film festival. That was sort of the formula. We threw a lot of insane parties, and then we ended up doing a thing called the Hot Show for Comedy Central. We did Love Styles for another .com company. That was a dating company. So this was like a dating show that I hosted. We did another thing called Backdoor Hollywood. Is that on my IMDb? I don't know if that is, but that was a movie review web show. I don't think it would be, because we did it for the web. So we did like 20 episodes of that show. I don't think you can find it anywhere now. That was, what was that company that we did it with? Wirebreak. There's a company called Wirebreak. Yeah, they financed that show. So we did this. So we were basically like making shorts and pitching them as TV shows. And we were financed by .com 1.0 companies. And then when .com 1.0 hit the wall, this company kind of hit the wall too. Eventually, all of our sponsors and people that we were pitching to died in 2002. And then that's when sort of that company ended. And but that also then led to, then the next year I got a job for working for Perry Farrell and Lollapalooza, it was a text messaging prankster game. And so it was Perry's like an early adopter in technology, and so he had this concept and this tech team behind him, and they needed someone to do the creative. And so they were like, let's call the South Park guys. And so a friend of mine, Adam Schneider, was managing Jane's Addiction, and he's like, he asked me, hey, I want to talk to the South Park guys about about doing this thing. And I actually was interested in trying to put my film festival. I wanted to be like turn the Lap Dance Film Festival into this traveling movie festival that traveled with Lollapalooza, doing like cool shorts and stuff like that. But Adam was like, you're going to need, you'll need your own sponsors if you want to do that, which I didn't have. And then in turn, when he talked to Matt and Trey, they were like, oh, you should hire Jason to do this. He's like the perfect person to do this. So then they called me back and said, hey, do you want to do this? I'm like, sure. And I was a huge Jane's Addiction fan already. So, when I first sat in the room with Perry Farrell, I was definitely starstruck, and he is, amazing presence. And he had this crazy idea. So it was like this, he had like these youthful ideas of like a 5-year-old or a teenager or something, and he had this amazing team to do it. So I came on, and this was really the beginning of digital and cell phones and stuff like that. So we were basically doing like guerrilla theater mixed with mobile high tech. So what the game was called Minefield, and mind, like MIND field, right? So we're field of minds. And if you wanted to play with us, we would you got this code you responded to, and we'd text you every hour, for a new challenge. So like at noon, it was like, go meet at the top of the amphitheater and look for the priest and the nun and ask them what the meaning of life is, and if you chose to go find the priest and the nun, you would sort of get immersed in this, sort of silly theatrical scene with this priest and nun trying to bring you into some kind of silly, play, and they had some comedic shtick, and then they ultimately send you to the next goal. So you went on this sort of like human scavenger hunt. That was one aspect. There's several aspects of it. There's also this, you could also text in and play a trivia game. And there's some hidden camera stuff, but really the core part was this, guerrilla theater, and and the ability to win prizes, like the ability to go backstage and do all this stuff. And so we also had this, so part of it, we were like this, Lollapalooza's got a lot of sideshows. So we were providing like the ultimate sideshow. So not only could you find our actors and go on these human scavenger hunts, but we also had this stage called the booty stage, which is like this like 5-foot stage, not like a real stage at Lollapalooza, it's just this tiny little thing. But there we had all kinds of just bizarre contests and silly acts and just other ways that you could win prizes, and the most coveted ones were, of course, to go backstage. I don't know if they got to meet the band, but they got to go on stage on the side and watch them, from as close as you could be. So it was a real popular thing. And a crazy summer, I never thought I would be, or like at the time it was just what we were doing. But now looking back, it seems silly because we were teaching teenagers how to text message. Like we were literally like in the lines, because when we started, like nobody was playing. We're like, okay, we got to promote it more. But then we literally had to teach these kids, like, this is how you send a text. We'll send you one back, and we're teaching these 16-year-olds something that now is like second nature to them, and it's just sort of funny looking back. But anyway, that was one of I did that for 5 years, that job. I did a lot of collaborations with musicians. That's around the same time when I produced a record. And then I was also doing a lot of art direction with Les Claypool's Frog Brigade and Primus. And then that eventually led to us producing, or Les and I doing Electric Apricot, Quest for Festaru.
Had you always had a great relationship with those guys, like ever since you reached out to them to do South Park? Were you always in contact, keeping it buddy-buddy?
Yeah. So yeah, as it was my job to get Les to do and Primus to do the opening song for South Park, we became friends straight away from there. He ended up headlining Lap Dance with the Holy Mackerel. And Les, like, he had a couple of screenplays. He had this book called South of the Pump House, and he had this amazing screenplay, and he was trying to get that off the ground as a film for a while. It never has happened. I'm sure he's still working on it. His son's now a director. So, but Les, yeah, like, so yeah, we're friends and always looking for ways to do stuff together. And really the first job he gave me was art directing the Frog Brigade for New Year's Eve. And if you know Les Claypool and Primus, they always love to do a new theme every New Year's Eve. And it happened to be this year that I got brought on. He had his son was really young and loved George of the Jungle, and so they were doing, or yeah, no, so it was like it was a Quest for Fire theme, okay, where they're all going to be cavemen, but then at midnight they're going to play George of the Jungle. I think that's how it was. So Les wanted caveman outfit, and I was like, okay, great, and I sourced epic caveman outfit, and I had to give him sort of the hero outfit, and I was like, this is either going to be like the end of our relationship or the beginning, because he had this great big wolf mask, but then he had this huge kind of furry loinclothy thing and some other really kind of random and weird caveman accessories. But he, of course, loved them. Was super stoked. So I art directed, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 more New Year's and lots of other side shows. And then we were just, kicking ideas around all the time. And then eventually, he came back from a Christmas vacation in Hawaii and said, "Hey, I've got this new idea. I want to do a mockumentary about a jam band called Electric Apricot."
Yeah. And you were actually great enough to send me that through the post.
Nice, it made it.
And you signed a couple of postcards for me and a get well card for my mum.
Nice. I hope she's doing better.
That's just incredible of you, man. But what was going on at this time? Was it like a case of just all the planets aligned? It was the right place, right time. Let's just go all in on this film.
Yeah. So I mean, so again, yeah. So when Les reached out to me, I was living in Topanga Canyon. Actually, Matt had this epic compound in Topanga, and so me and another old friend of his, Stan Sawicki, lived there, and that was fortunate because it gave me a friendly platform to do another like low no budget movie, where we weren't going to really be paying ourselves much of anything, because we just were desperate to get this idea off the ground and make it go. Because it's like, when Les called, it was just, it was like this moment in time where Primus was taking a break, and he'd been playing on the jam band scene, and he was already friends with, Trey Anastasio from Fish. And so, he was like, he had just a couple of degrees of separation from the jam band scene, and then Frog Brigade was a jam band, so they really entered that. And so, so when he called with this idea, and of course, me growing up as a Deadhead, I was like, this is the coolest idea I could imagine hearing, and it was like 110%, like, let's go make this movie now, and nothing else mattered. And like, that's really like, if you want to get your any film off the ground and you don't have a budget, you have to just kind of like get this tunnel vision where you just become obsessed and you just go and go and go. And so the idea was great. He wanted to do it and shoot it like a documentary. And again, Les Claypool is the first person to own Cannibal the Musical. He has extensive collection of British comedies. So he was really, you think of him as the front man of Primus, the Rolling Stones' 5th best bass player of all time, and all these things. But like, he's a British comedy nerd on the inside. No one had known this. So and so he wanted Electric Apricot's tone to kind of feel like The Office as much as possible. That was so it was like kind of like Bonnaroo meets The Office was sort of like our setting. But the key to making it go was having an actual band that could actually play, but then could also actually act and be funny. And so, so we just basically pulled our resources of old friends, and tapped into our high school friend pool. So I called up one of my best friends, Jonathan Cordy, who has a band called Vinyl, another band called Soul Ska in Marin County, and he is a talented keyboard player and multi-instrumentalist. And then Les called up his buddies Brian Kehoe and Adam Gates, and I believe he went to high school with both of those guys. Kehoe's this epic guitar player, punk rocker, who's part of this band Merv, and is just a Bay Area shredder, but not a Deadhead, not in the jam band world at all. He has a big beard, a belly, so he seemed physically right for the character that was supposed to be emulating or looking up to or inspired by Jerry Garcia. and then Adam Gates, he'd been sort of like the sort of unofficial fourth member of Primus for years, playing this infamous character Bob Seacock. And if you're a Primus fan, you know there's this character Bob Seacock who has showed up at all the old early days of and it's just kind of part of the Primus lore. And that character is created by Adam Gates, who at the time when we were casting him to be the singer bass player, he was just getting a job at Pixar, so we were working around his new schedule at Pixar. And then Les, of course, he didn't want to be the bass player. He did, so he wanted to be the drummer. So we give him a chance to really act and do something different. And no, I had no idea he could play drums, but he's a great drummer. And when people ask him about his character that he called Lapdog, he just basically said Lapdog was his chance to make fun of every drummer he's ever known his entire life. So if you're a musician and you see Electric Apricot and you see this comedy, like these guys are all real musicians, so they're coming from this place of experiencing the life that they're lampooning, and I think that just adds to the depth of it, and now years later, seeing who's responded to it, musicians love it. In fact, I think probably the highlight that comes to mind of like my favorite Electric Apricot fan, it's hands down, is Bootsy Collins from P Funk. He's friends with Les, of course. They love of the bass, and I got to send Bootsy his own DVD, and I got to write him my own little fan letter and thank you to Bootsy, and just the fact that he's got that on his tour bus, makes me happy every day. So
Yeah. Well, did Claypool write an entire script for this? Because it seems very improvised. It's very natural. I was wondering how much of it was improvised. Maybe all of it.
yeah, so I mean, it's what I call scripted improv. So when we made the film, the I play the manager. Les had already figured out the manager was going to be Smiling Don Kleinfeld, so that's my character. But all the other guys, they made that, and I was already contributing to the story and stuff. But we wanted everybody to feel like they were contributors, at least for the core group. And so for Brian Kehoe and Adam Gates and Jonathan Cordy, they all got to come up with the names for their characters, and they got to work on their own backstory, right? And so they came up with that. They, then collaborated with Les and I, like, here's my character. I'm Iwas. This is my background. I'm Herschel Brillstein, so they came with us with those characters. We worked on them a little bit. And then the way it would work is that we would shoot it like a documentary. So, here's Iwas in his treehouse, and then the filmmakers would come up, and Les had a concept for the whole overarching story. We knew, the beginning, middle, and end of where the story went. But instead of scripting it, we shot it like a documentary. So it was really driven by the questions asked in the interviews, and then certain scenes that were set up. So like when the band has a run-in at the studio, we talk about the beats that we want to hit in this scene, and then we just film it like a documentary and do a few takes, and that style really worked out well for us. But it only worked because Les knew what he needed to get as the director and editor of the film. So,
Yeah. That the in studio footage is like the greatest. Like, I could watch the drum setup if that was the whole movie. If that was the running joke for the whole film, that was amazing to me. I just love that. Like, he's still setting up his drums. Okay, where's the beer? I'm glad I brought a book.
yeah.
I've never had someone take this long to set the drums up before.
There's a lot of drummer jokes, in the music industry. So Les got to embody them all with his character Lapdog.
Yeah. He seems like a guy whose brain is running 1,000 times faster than everybody else. Even when he sings, he can precisely say 20 sentences in like 2 seconds. It's incredible. Like,
In 1986, the University of California, Davis saw two of its all-time brightest stars, Dr. Alphonse Mephisto and Dr. Arnie Apes-Krapin. Dr. Mephisto worked hard towards his thesis. His goal was to genetically duplicate the DNA structure of asparagus so that all asparagus would grow to the same girth and length, giving asparagus a much more pleasant presentation in the world's supermarket vegetable bins.
I'm just going to throw that in just so people have an idea of what I'm talking about, because he's like one of the fastest vocalists that way, and one of the fastest bass players too. If you've seen him like hit those fucking like crazy shit like that, incredible, man.
Yeah,
but
no, but he. I mean, I'd say the fifth best bass player because he was. That's what Rolling Stone said. It was like Paul McCartney #1, John Entwistle #2, Geddy Lee #3, and then I can't remember who's fourth, but Les was fifth out of the top.
God. I don't know, man.
Bass players of all time.
He seems more talented than all of those people.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, obviously, like, he could outshred Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney just has a few more hits, so they're probably taking that into mind. It's not necessarily how much he rips on the bass, but like, the hits he's created as a bass player. I don't know how the judging works, but it seems like he can outshred just about anybody. So.
Yeah. Well, one of the most incredible parts about this film is that you guys actually got Seth Green in this, and he's already blown up with those 3 Austin Powers films, so he's a megastar by this point. How did he get involved?
Yeah. So, I mean, really, like, we just had, we have personal friend connections, and Primus had also done a theme song for Robot Chicken, which was Seth Green's animated show. So to get Seth Green, it was just a phone call. So, I called Matt and Les called Seth and said, hey, do you want to do this scene? They were both totally up for it. And then, they'd never met before doing that scene before. So they just kind of came in and hit it off, and they just started riffing. And, they barely needed any direction for that. It was amazing. And yeah, we were grateful. Yeah. Cause Seth was definitely blown up by then.
Yeah. I wish Matt was in it a little bit more, cause they are good together. Like, they had this on-screen chemistry that I wouldn't have even been able to predict. And I love the way that they keep looking to see if the other guy is saying the accurate information and then keep trying to top each other with what they're doing,
Oh no, they could have gone on for days, and like with those tapers, there's so many little technical jokes, I mean, because it's like a real culture, and like there's real people having that exact argument, like at any given show, it's like, it's such a little niche slice of nerddom that I enjoyed that a lot. Trey was supposed to be in the film too, and we just like when we produced Electric Apricot, it was, making jokes about this band, trying to make it. But meanwhile, we were filmmakers with a really small budget, just getting bitch slapped left and right by different things, from the beginning of the production all the way through the distribution of it. So, I don't know. So we had a lot of things to overcome during production. And I think, one of the most ridiculous ones was that, we had set the film up so we were shooting like while we did real gigs, so we did the taper scene, that's shot at a club in LA where we had a show later that night, and like the festival scenes and the Festaroo scenes were ultimately shot at 2 different festivals, but we were supposed to shoot it all at one festival. It was supposed to be called the Shakedown Festival in northeast of Portland, just like right where Festaroo actually, happened. And we were driving there in our RV with the whole band, like, this is the last stuff we need and we're done. And about, halfway to the festival, we find out the festival has been canceled because the promoters didn't have enough money. They didn't sell enough pre-sale tickets. And the company that was the staging company needed a deposit they didn't get. And so when they didn't get the deposit, they pulled their staging and there's no festival apparently. And all these people flew in, and like Galactic was the headliner, and they were like there's some name bands on there. So it was like a cancellation was a big surprise, and ended up being, I think there was like 1,000 kids there who like basically had a weekend long drum circle or some shit like that. But for us, we had to go home, and like again, like our bass player had just gotten this epic job at Pixar. So he all of a sudden had a full-time job, and everybody's sort of time was running out to do this because no one was getting fat paychecks on this production. So we had to just run and gun. And so when that canceled, it was a real kick in the nuts, one of many. And eventually we found the Earth Dance Festival where we did shoot the final scene. And then when it came time to do the final scene, the morning of, like, Kehoe, our guitar player, his legs stiffened up and he couldn't walk that morning for whatever bizarre reasons. And so he comes out like a zombie in the film, the end. And that wasn't even acting. That was like, he really couldn't walk. We had to give him a stool. He could only stand up for one song at that show. So like things like that were happening to us.
Is that why you worked that into the story? Because he had that bender goes off into the bushes. Right into
the story. We were already setting up that, without any spoilers, we're already setting up that he, gets lost in the woods, and so it just that part played into the story and actually worked out great. But the morning of, when we were like, okay, this is our second chance and probably our only chance to get this scene, and you can't even get up out of bed, we were nervous, to say the least. And but eventually, yeah, it did work out just perfectly. But again, there's just so many things going wrong.
Yeah. So you say this band was playing real gigs. So how many of those extras were like really there just to see a show? Did they know they were going to be a part of the movie?
Oh yeah, all of them. So every one of those shows. So like the first gig is at the Sweetwater, which is like a small famous club in my hometown, Mill Valley, California. So that night, we booked it was an all electric Apricot show. Maybe we had an opening band. I can't remember. I don't think so. But everybody there was there to see this band, and because it had Les Claypool in it and it was like the surprise band, it had this cachet. So it was easy to fill these clubs up on this tour. And we did the Sweetwater in Mill Valley, and then we rolled down to Los Angeles. I can't remember the name of the club. We played in LA. Les passed a kidney stone after that gig and was on morphine, and then we drove to Santa Cruz. We had a gig there. Towards the end of the gig in Santa Cruz, the club had a rolling blackout. So like really like mid finale of the show, blackout. So everything goes dead. Then we came out and did like an acoustic encore that was lit with flashlights. That didn't even make it in the movie, but like that actually happened, and then I think there was maybe one or two other gigs on that main part of the tour. And then we did the High Sierra Music Festival. That's where we shot half of the Festaroo scene. And then after Shakedown canceled on us, we hit Earth Dance in Laytonville, which actually was a great place to film Festaroo. But, again, like there's other things like that happened to us during this production, like the director of photography. We think he got spooked by a ghost, in the Pocket Studios, because after a weekend shooting there, this very mild-mannered person didn't return our calls. And then 3 days later, he's like, I'm throwing all the film in the fire. I'm done. And we're like, what? You're throwing the film in the fire? Like by now, like if he had thrown the film in the fire, like there would be no film. We would have been done. Like that would have been it. There would have been no movie. But after another day or two passed, he called and said, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. And then we just went on like nothing had happened. But we ended up cutting the scene. There was one scene in there about how we talk about how the studio is haunted. And we cut that because we felt like, yeah, it is actually haunted and we're not going to fuck with that. So we cut that scene. I don't know if it helped us or not, because we ended up then awesomely getting National Lampoon as our distributor. And we were fans of National Lampoon, and they just bought a new epic office place on Sunset Boulevard right across from Chateau Marmont. And they were like, we're bringing the 70s glory back to National Lampoon, and we're giving all these movies a theatrical release. We want your film, and let's go. So we were thrilled, and they were thrilled that someone's giving us the theatrical, because that's what Les really wanted. That's what I wanted. And we felt like the film had legs. And then turned out National Lampoons were really like a bunch of crooks. And we ended up really set up our own theatrical tour by ourselves. They did like this fake theatrical tour where they put it in 8 theaters in the outer limits of Atlanta, Georgia. And they were just trying to sell DVDs to Blockbuster, but we believed that we had like an art house movie. So after they did this sort of fake release, we were like, no, we're going to book a real tour. And so we booked art house theaters and clubs, and tied it in with the Frog Brigade tour. And so that the movie did like about 30 cities theatrically that we set up all ourselves. But then National Lampoons collected the revenues. And then it turned out that they were getting targeted by the FBI for stock fraud. And so all the stuff they'd done for National Lampoons was to try to boost the stock price, which they own like 60% of or some shit. And so anyway, they got arrested. They went to jail. Like the CEO went to jail, and then the COO went to jail. But like by now, like, you know, like when the DVD was out, they collected all the revenue, went to jail. Film, the company eventually closed down. We got our rights back from the CEO while he was in jail. So that was a silver lining to get our rights back. But again, like we've done all this work and we're reaping nothing from it. And so that was just yet another sort of instance of how Electric Apricot was this joyous thing to produce. And like one of the things I'm still so excited about to this day. But, you know, at the time, Les described making that movie like as if you were building a house with the different parts of that house on fire. So that was his analogy. You know, he wasn't too far off there. So it was some beatings.
Yeah, I was surprised by how good the quality was. I wasn't expecting it to be as high quality. It's almost better than Orgasmo, the quality at least. I mean,
well, you know what? Yeah. Okay, sorry to interrupt, but I'm really glad to hear that. The DVD version that you got, there was I think we upres the picture once before that copy. At least I hope so, and I'm glad to hear that you like the quality, because that's been an issue. We wanted it to make it look like a student film at the time. You know, that's the perspective of the filmmaker in the movie. And so we were shooting with mini DVs. So we were shooting it like a student film, which saved a ton of money and made production a lot more easy, because it's like definitely like on the fly guerrilla type of movie. But you know, I'm concerned about the quality holding up with the modern day flat screen. So I'm glad to hear you liked it.
It worked in the film's favor as well, being a documentary. Like you expect the handheld, the shakiness. It was so perfect the way it was shot. It really was believable. Like if you didn't know any better, you would believe it, because this is your best acting.
Yeah.
Especially the scene where you've locked yourself out of the car. It's so natural. It's so perfect, you know?
Yeah. I mean, again, like it was art imitating life constantly in that film. And so like, you know, like, yeah, when things would go wrong, like we would make the most of it. And I actually did lock the keys in my car. I'm pretty sure for that. I did not do that on purpose. I actually pretty sure like I did like miss paying a cell phone bill, you know, at the time when I'm talking about like getting my phone getting cut off while I'm the manager. That may or may not have actually happened, you know, I can't recall. But you know, but that was just kind of part of the deal for Electric Apricot, you know. It's just like and they're probably you know, that's why I am hoping that somebody does a making of Electric Apricot DVD or a DVD with that story, because again, if we could get all the other guys to talk about their experiences and the mayhem that we experienced, it's as interesting as the movie, I think, almost. So maybe some archival student filmmaker will want to come back and go through the footage and see what's there. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, so I'm just now reminded of like some of those interviews from the fans. Was the Cube guy real? The guy who does the Cube dance, was that a real guy?
Yeah, well, it's a real guy, comedian Arch Barker, who is from Marin County. He grew up in Fairfax, actually, where we shot that scene. That the cube scene was shot outside of Perry's or 19 Broadway in Fairfax. And Arch Barker is an incredible stand-up comedian. You should definitely Google search him. He moved to he I think he lives most of the time in Australia, but he's a hilarious stand-up and a hilarious improv comedian. And he came up with all that. And no, that's not a real person. I mean, it's a real person playing a character. But yeah, Arch Barker. Look at his stand-up is outstanding.
Yeah. And you got Dian in this as well. Like, I had no idea he was gonna pop up. I read a little bit about it. I just read Seth Green, Matt Stone, Jason McHugh. I'm in. But then Dian pops up as well. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Well, so that's why I think Cannibal the musical fans will love Electric Apricot, because you get to see, myself and Matt and then Dian in like one of his most epic roles, yeah, I mean, he nails this character. It was fun. It was funny. All the shirts he wears are old Grateful Dead shirts that I got on actual 80s tour. So it's fun for me to just be reusing these t-shirts. They fit him perfectly. And then his character is amazing. And just, it plays an important twist on the whole film. And then also the guy who fires him, that is played by Kyle. Was what name I'm spacing out now. That's embarrassing. But Kyle's one of the original writers on, and the first 10 season of South Park is Kyle McCullough, and he plays the band's financing, exec producer role. And so working with Kyle and Dian was definitely a special moment in time for me. So,
Yeah. Was that Dian's real car as well?
no, it was not his car. I can't remember whose car that was, but I mean, like that car, like nailed the part, I mean, like, and that's one of those things you have to just see it to know what we're talking about. But like, I remember like when he peels out and the car doing its thing, and I was just like, okay, this is perfect. Thank you, universe. We'll take this one.
Yeah. The greatest Dian work, I think, was in the bathroom. That bathroom scene with
Oh
the
yeah,
paper.
yeah,
Oh man, that was so
yeah.
good.
No, he nails that. He's so good at just being like, naturally awkward, and then he's also like, he's one of these actors that can cry on film. Like he can cry on demand. He did it in Cannibal. You got to see him do a little bit, but here when you see him in Electric Apricot crying, you feel it. It's just such a gutting moment, and he's just a great actor.
Yeah. So there's that deleted scene with Adam Gates where he's going through the Necronomicon, and he's also like going through some random books, and he's making it like poetry. Like, that should have been in the film, man. That was so funny. Why did that get cut?
This is one of those movies where we definitely, like Cannibal, we had to kill our own babies. There are so many funny things that didn't drive the story forward. And like, we found out like that, doing the studio stuff where, they run into these complications that makes it take a lot of time. That's where we put it. We had more vignettes in there, and like, and we actually, like, for the director's cut, we cut some of our funniest vignettes. And again, it's gutting to cut them, because they're great scenes, but we were just trying to make the movie flow as quickly as possible, and it drags a little in the middle. So we had to kind of, kill some babies in the middle in order to, drive the story into the third act. But I mean, there's another hilarious golf scene with Herschel Brillstein where you see him face some of his anger management issues. I don't know. There was a few other really funny things that definitely got cut, and so that's why maybe another DVD, because I don't, were there deleted scenes in this DVD, because I haven't even watched it in like 10 years. So there were some. Okay, that's where you saw that. Was the golf scene in a deleted scene?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, so you got to that's I'm glad to hear that because again I just can't remember, but again that's the beauty of deleted scenes and DVDs, and that's why I'm glad they're there because it made killing your babies easier because you just be like, okay, this is going to be bonus material, and people who love the movie will go and who want more will go and get it, and then they'll be like, why the hell wasn't this in, and the reason is because it just needed to be a shorter movie, I guess, so.
Yeah. Well, what one thing that did make it into the film from Adam Gates is he's playing that song, like psychic detective or psychic police officer or something, suspiciously around the same year that South Park did the Cartman psychic working for the police. Was that connected? Were they watching that
I, you
film?
know, Jesus, that great connection there. I did not put those two together until you just mentioned it now. I don't think there was. I think that was just this like just everyone being on the same comedic wavelength, but I don't think there was any influence from one to the other. So I mean, again, because Les when he came up with Electric Apricot, he just stayed at Trey's place in Hawaii. So he came back and he called me and he called Trey and he called Matt and he's like, I got this idea. And so he called me because he knew I'd be up for producing it. He called Trey just because he just thank him for staying at his pad, and then they started talking about it, and of course that gave Trey the idea to do the jam band episode for South Park. So I was actually like a little bit miffed because like I'm living at Matt's place and I'm like, dude, we're gonna do this movie with Les. It's gonna be rad. And then 3 weeks later, they're already doing the jam band episode. We're just starting production, and then they're already got their episode on TV because they're doing a week. And I'll never forget when Matt calls me up and he's like, dude, what's your least favorite jam band? What's your least favorite jam band? I need to know. And I'm like, for me, I was like, well, String Cheese Incident and maybe Humphreys McGee. Those are the jam bands that I just don't get. So he's like, okay, perfect, thanks. And then I'm telling my other best friend Tony about this, who has the other best friend's band Vinyl on his record label. That's Jonathan Cordy from Electric Apricot. And so I tell Tony about this, and he's like, "No, dude, Vinyl. They're the band you should be saying is the worst jam band." I'm like, "No, I love Vinyl. What are you talking about?" But Tony was like, "Music royalties, music royalties. Let's get Vinyl in there so we can earn some music royalties because they pay handsomely if you get a song on South Park. They do a worldwide buyout, so you can make some money with a song on there." So I called Matt back and said, "Hey, maybe you should consider some Vinyl for these sound cues," when I caught on to what they were doing and why he was even asking me this in the first place. So we think we got Vinyl in there, but then I think Humphreys McGee can thank me because I think some tracks in there got theirs was in there too. I'm not sure, but everybody made some money on that. All the musicians did at least. And that was a hilarious episode. So I was laughing, while I was watching it, knowing that we were making our own version and live action. So
Didn't you get credited on the episode?
oh, of course not. No. No, I don't get credit. I don't get credit for anything on South Park except for on the pilot. But like I've definitely had my influence in many subtle and not so subtle ways.
So there's that scene in Apricot where the band has to go through band therapy. So you bring that guy in to do the therapy. Who played that role?
Yeah, Brian Kite, who is actually Les's brother-in-law, who is a theater director and an actor. So yeah, Brian is a prolific, does theater, and he was a perfect choice to play the band's therapist. And I didn't know him before that, but I felt like he certainly nailed that role. And it was fun to work with and look good in Cosby sweaters, as it were.
Well, there's a moment in one of those scenes where the keyboard player, he says, "This is going to sound crazy, but I've always wanted to have blonde hair." And then Adam cracks. Was that
Yeah.
real? Because oh man.
Oh yeah. No, he lost it there. He just couldn't contain himself. I mean, that was part of the fun of Electric Apricot, and the acting is that you didn't know necessarily what the other person was going to be busting out, and so yeah, so sometimes it was hard to keep a straight face, I mean, and Adam's like, yeah, he's trying to shield himself. He does a pretty good job, but if you're paying attention, you can tell he's cracking up. And so, that happened a lot.
So who makes the decision, like when it comes time to leaving that scene in? Because that's in the film, and it helps the
Yeah.
film in a way. It makes it even funnier that he cracks.
Yeah. Well, so the movie was cut by this guy named Agent Ogden, Agent O, who's basically kind of like a key part of the Claypool creative army, and Agent O, he does all the visuals. He mixes all the visuals live for Primus. While touring with Primus, I've gotten to sit in for Agent O and do some of the video mixing for him. And he's got this his own system, so he's just a badass in post production and live video mixing. And so he was the main editor, but ultimately Les made all the final creative decisions, And so it's like, yeah, again, it's like most when usually you see a director's cut, it's like 5 to 20 minutes longer. When you see the Electric Apricot director's cut, it's like 3 minutes shorter, at least, so Les ultimately makes all those creative calls.
Yeah. And again, man, he just seems like a great guy, but is it intimidating to be around him?
Les Claypool, the Colonel, is a powerful man for sure. And yeah, I know he's a joy to work with. And as a director, he knew exactly what he wanted and has a real vision. And so, yeah, I mean, he's like one of the most deeply creative, talented people that I've ever worked with. But he's also a great guy, and he's fun to hang around with, and just he's funny and cool, and he just has this like amazing sort of creative team. Like I got to go to his 60th birthday party last year, and it was so cool because there's all these people that I hadn't seen in years who are amazing, and so he sort of has this group. And I think if you've gotten a nickname from Les Claypool, you're sort of in this group, and you never know when you're going to get the call from the Colonel to go do some kind of project, and so some people are coming kind of always coming and going, but always sort of part of this kind of greater loose, Colonel, the Colonel's army of talented friends, and there's just so many interesting people there that I've met and gotten to work with, and so yeah, I can't say enough cool things. He even makes great wine. If you like a Pinot Noir, try Claypool Cellars. How's that for a pitch? You're welcome, Les.
So, did anyone else from Primus work on the film? Did they help arrange any music, anything like that?
So no, not really. So yeah, so like not really, because like when we were doing Electric Apricot, Primus was pretty much on hiatus. Les was changing his management up. There was a lot of just sort of like, I don't know, like just general changing of the tide happening for Primus when we were doing Electric Apricot, and so no, those guys didn't do anything specific on it that I recall. Like, but so no, not really. But wait a second. I think that, okay, I take that back. I'm pretty sure Larry Lalonde contributed something onto our soundtrack, but again, it's not ringing a bell. So I think Larry might have given us a guitar track or something, but I'm not exactly sure. But again, it was sort of a downtime for Primus, and Les was exploring other things. And I think Primus was just like had come out of the '90s, shot out of a cannon, and then every band has that time in their career that that's gotten a success where they need to like collect themselves and sort of personally reboot. And I think that's kind of what all the guys in Primus were doing while Electric Apricot was happening and what Les was doing Frog Brigade. I think those guys were doing some other small projects like so but again, like I think that time where they were down led to them coming back and rebooting and like basically crushing it for the last 15 years with new records and countless tours. I mean, Les is like one of the hardest working guys in show business. You know, he's got a real, like, he's got that blue collar workman's kind of like work ethic, you know, where he's always got to be working on a project or he gets super bored, you know. And so like, even so, like, he'll tour Primus until they've done every market, and then, you know, he'll call up one of the side bands like the Frog Brigade or Duo de Twang, which is him with Brian Kehoe from Electric Apricot. That's one of my favorite things. Like Les Claypool's Duo de Twang acoustic, so much fun. They play all these different fun covers you wouldn't expect. But if you go to a live show, it's like half comedy between Les and Brian Kehoe, and then half music. And then, you know, he's got this little side project with this guy Sean Lennon, you know, the Claypool Lennon Delirium, and so their music's super far out. And then Les and Sean Lennon also have this crazy chemistry. So when you see them on stage, it's, you know, it's the Colonel and Shiner, and it's a lot of comedy mixed with some deeply epic psychedelic music, you know. So I'm a fan.
Well, did he go on to make other films? Because I know he's done like various different video projects. And did he finance Electric Apricot by himself?
No, so Electric Apricot was financed by, well, Trey and Matt were financiers, along with just a lot of different friends and family. Again, we kind of produced it in a similar fashion to Cannibal. You know, Trey and Matt were our biggest investors, and then we got lots of small investments from different people. Les put in some of his own money too, ultimately. But yeah, we just, because of that sort of that run and gun style, we didn't like set out to like go look for financing. You know, like a normal producer would have been like, okay, great, now we've got the idea, and, you know, some art in the band, let's go find a couple $1 million to go do this. But that wasn't our mentality. Our mentality is like, we got video cameras, we got talented people, let's just get enough money to, like, you know, cover people's expenses and small day rates and gas and food, and let's just go do it, you know. And I you know, and I think that was the film we were going for. You know, we weren't trying to go for anything bigger until we went after, you know, a follow-up film, and we never got a follow-up film off the ground. I think because we tried to go for another comedy with this black and white comedy concept, but we just didn't have the connections, and Electric Apricot hadn't like smashed out there. It came out with like a cult movie where it's sleepy word of mouth instead of being like a big, you know, here we have a live feature, where's our next feature film coming, you know, like we also, like, again, like, if Les had this horror comedy idea, I'd still like to produce, actually, to this day. I think if we'd come out with that, we might have gotten that financed right away. But as it were, we weren't getting financing, and Les had now just, you know, worked for 2 years for free, basically. And he was like, I kind of need to get back out there and get that old Primus paycheck coming back, you know. And by then, too, you know, they'd all had enough time to, I think, just like, you know, have some time off from that project and then come back to it fresh. So so we didn't get the next feature off, sadly. But Les's son, Cage Claypool, who I watched grow up, Cage plays one of the kids at the coffee shop. You see Cage and Lena and Cheney. That's Les's family there, you know, in 2006. And now they're all grown up, and Cage has been coming out with some epic videos. And so I predict that Les and Cage will come up with some feature film, and or I will circle back with them and convince them that we need to do this movie concept that Les has, which is called Frizzle Fry, which is the name of their first album. That he's got an epic story about that I would love to produce someday. So this is just having this interview is reminding me of that idea. I haven't thought about it in a while. So I might have to reread that script after this interview. So
do you think it was doing things like Electric Apricot that kept that sort of band relationship that kept Claypool in the loop so that you guys felt comfortable enough to reach out for them, or Matt and Trey at least felt comfortable reaching out and saying, hey, can you do the 25th anniversary of South Park? Because they play the whole show, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I'll tell you, I've been trying to get Electric Apricot back together for the last 15 years. Okay, and then, like there keeps being like, oh, maybe this is going to be a chance, maybe this is the chance, and again, because Les plays in all these different bands, and in fact, one year he had Duo de Twang opening up for Primus for New Year's Eve. And the problem is, and this is my theory, is the reason, or one of the reasons we haven't been with Electric Apricot back together for a live show is Les plays the drums. Okay. Drumming, the most physically challenging role of anything. So Les can't be expected to get out there and drum for 45 minutes, drum and sing for 45 minutes doing Electric Apricot, and then be fresh enough to front a Primus show, and so that's why it's never happened. And so if Les is going to do it, he's got to be lapdog, and that's got to be the only thing he's doing, because he can't mix him up, because again, he's a bass player. If he had played the bass in Apricot, then I'm sure we would have gotten it going again. But again, because he's got to be the drummer, it's hard work being the drummer. That's a big job. So, that's my theory and why it hasn't happened yet. But I had nothing to do with the 25th anniversary show. So yeah, the idea of bringing Primus and Ween together at Red Rocks, I'm sure that was the idea of Trey and Matt, and then teaming up with Les, and then everybody, and then their friends with Ween, and actually our friend Brad Sands, who, he took over the management for Primus around that time I was talking about, when we were finishing Electric Apricot and getting it out. That was when Brad Sands and Red Light Management was taking over the reins for Primus management. And then he actually also manages Ween. So there's this friendly ecosystem of creatives and management that pulled that together.
So did you get the personal invite from Matt or Trey, or was it like the creative South Park team?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to Matt all the time. So I mean, like he told me about it and let me know I was getting invited. And it was cool. Like here, I even got this right here. Like this is what we got. This was what all the people who'd worked on the show, their friends and family, got this special fancy Bose anniversary headphones, which are actually pretty nice. Look at this. So there you go. We got these suckers. 25th anniversary. Little stand on there. I don't know, but they're really nice. So they were giving out gift bags. We were staying at fancy hotels and drinking fancy drinks, styling it out for the 25th anniversary and treating everybody that had been any part of it, big or small, kind of like special royalty. And, so there was like a cast, there was like a friends and family VIP zone there. And I look forward to the 30th anniversary. I hope they blow it out at Red Rocks again, or maybe we should just go to the Sphere now and go big.
Is there no chance that you could just like get onto South Park, even like for the 30th anniversary? Because Dian's been on the show.
I mean, well, the thing is, I've never like had like a speaking role in the show. I've never done voices for them. So, and like, even in Orgasmo, I play like one of the camera guys. In post production, Matt went and dubbed my voice in. So when you see me talking in Orgasmo, it's Matt's voice. And that's like just part of like their joke. So I'm not gunning for that or expecting that, and no. So I wouldn't be looking for that or trying even trying for that. If there was some special needs, sure. If they need me to dress up in a tomato suit and walk across the stage for the 30th anniversary or something like that, sure, I'll do that. That's what a lot of friends actually, so like my friend Stan Sawicki and a couple other people. Oh yeah, John from the show. They played at the end. There's these characters come up, these costume characters at the end of the 25th anniversary, and so that was played by a bunch of different friends. So I would consider something like that, but no, I'm not. That's not what I'm looking for. I'd be much more interested in getting the next Electric Apricot off the ground, and also my actual focus too is still on Cannibal the musical, and we did this. We have this version done by the guys who did Evil Dead that I'm calling Cannibal the Musical Redux, and we this show played in 2015 in Toronto, and it was epic, and it was sold out for 3 weeks, but there wasn't a pathway to go to the US yet, and so it never really got into being able to tour. um, but I'm hoping that pathway is opening up now, and we'll have a new version of Cannibal hitting the stages, um, either in 2025 or 2026. So I think that's my only real focus on working in the Trey and Matt world. And then and if we get an Electric Apricot making of, that would be fun too.
Yeah. There's a little part of me that wishes that all you guys from Cannibal had just stayed together and just continued and grown into South Park, you know. I wish people would talk about Matt, Trey, and Jason.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, like, so that was the original intention was, for Trey, Matt, myself, and Ian Harden as the Avenging Conscience Productions to sort of basically, like we, do like our version of Monty Python, But I think a couple things happened. One was Ian fell in love out of the gates with this woman, Alex, and then we became sort of like these two different camps doing Cannibal, which I think I discussed, and so that never really materialized as that sort of foursome group. And then the other thing too is Trey is so ridiculously talented. He could be doing all the things all by himself. South Park wouldn't look anything like it would now because, it's really informed by Matt's politics and not politics, but basically like viewpoint of the world and what's morally right and wrong. And so I think that informs the show's morality, and then Trey's creativity just pours through it. So, and I never persevered at voice acting. And so anyway, so it's just sort of like the way things unfolded. And I am only be grateful about the things that did happen. And I can't really get too bummed out about things that didn't happen, because so many amazing things have happened and are happening. So that's my perspective, as an optimist, and just excited about the creative things that we did pull off, because it's so hard to get any of the stuff off the ground, even after you've made it, because just different personal politics and where different people are in life, and so it's like all these things are very fragile, and you don't really understand that till maybe later in life, but anyway, I'm super grateful about everything we've been able to get done.
Just an interesting bit of side information. When you go on Wikipedia and you look up the actors from Cannibal and everyone from the crew, when you click on Alex, it takes you to a completely different person. Interesting.
Really? Okay. That was I've looked at my own Wikipedia, but I haven't looked at the cast of Cannibal's Wikipedia. I don't even know. Yeah, something I haven't even looked at ever. Maybe I'll do that after we jump off. But that's interesting. I mean, I don't know. So I have no explanation for that. But other than she was a key part of the Cannibal production, but she went on to work as a school teacher, and so I think she's teaching like kindergarten or first grade or second grade kids, and so that's where her career took her. And Ian has been editing and doing post-production in Denver, since that time too. So he stayed on a creative path. We just didn't all stay together. And it would have been interesting, if other things had transpired, if say Ian didn't fall in love and it was the four of us couch surfing through Hollywood, who knows what would have happened then? That would have been everything would have been different. So who knows?
Just wrapping up then, is there any footage of crap TV, like anywhere on the internet?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, dude, there's so much footage. Like, again, like I wrote the book about crap TV. It's way longer than the other two books, like this book, what is like, what do we got? We're at This book came in at about 153 pages. The Shenanigans book will be longer than that, but the Crap TV book, like the stories are like through the roof. Like they're like the craziest of stories ever. And so that's like a 300-page book as it is now. That's gotta be the hardest to actually edit and tame. Um, but yeah, the stories run super duper deep. That's that I can just tell you that, and it's because it was such a crazy time for me personally, where like I'm launching this new company, yet while my old partners are their fame is going through the roof, and like we're going and having these insane Hollywood parties and experiences, and just so much happening all over the place. Um, and then also just basically like because the show is a week to air, and because the show in the early days is like a personal diary, that's where my influence in the show was like unexpectedly larger, even though when I wasn't working on the show, again, like just like characters like Timmy, I'll just say that, like there's a whole, like I've written several, there's like the main book is it's like a lot about this guy Timmy, and then but then all the experiences of just like blowing up Hollywood, and kind of but like sort of staying underground at the same time, so it's just kind of an odd perspective that led to deep adventure. It's kind of like the Crap TV book of it. I would, if you're going to compare it to another book, I would compare it to like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's like that. That's the book I would compare part 3 to. And so that's why I think it's probably the best read out of the 3, even though like you'd think the other ones would be more interesting because of the topics, but I mean, well, the I don't know. I can't judge my unpublished books, but I can say that the stories run deep, and I do hope to get them out to the public eventually.
Yeah. What's your all-time favorite South Park moment or episode?
Um, it's definitely the one. I think it's called Major Boobage, right? It's the one where it's like that heavy metal one where like Kenny's flying through space. So it's that one. Oh, there's three. There's Major Boobage, the jam band episode. Because I had personal investment in that and was personally sort of a part of that. And then again, like I love jam bands. I'll go see a Fish concert every year, and the Grateful Dead I listen to every day still. So definitely a jam band episode. But then the other one is the Christmas episode.
Animal Critters.
Yeah, the Animal Critters. I forget what it's called, Critterland. But it's done where it's done all as a Christmas rhyme. Trey rhymes the whole episode, and like to me that is just pure Trey Parker. Like I mean I think that's like the show that it would be like if Matt wasn't there. It would be more just kind of Christmas fantasy type shows. That's where you see Trey's brain working overtime. But to me, just the way that unfolded and the way that it really like feels like a Christmas episode with the rhyming and the warmth of it, yet the darkness and insanity that's happening while this episode is playing. So those are my top 3.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say if Matt wasn't involved, the show would be more of like satanic orgies.
It might be. It might. Yes, it might be. It'd be more on the satanic orgy side than say the moralistic. Like we got to do better world kind of vibe. So it'd be less social criticism and more just like super fantasy. That I think.
So, from day one of South Park, we've always seen the Orgasmo figure. It's normally like in an award form or a poster on somebody's door. It's not clear that that's what it is, but that's what it is. Can you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean that's 100% what it is. So yeah, it's just like the kids got an Orgasmo poster, and that's like little Easter egg in there for most people won't notice that for 3 seconds, but the people that do and put it together will be like, hey, that's awesome. And so that's just a happy little Easter egg in there that I'm glad you noticed.
Did you spot that yourself, or did someone have to point that out to you? I
Oh no, no,
imagine you spotted it
no,
yourself.
no, I definitely spotted that. Like, you're not gonna put that. That's not gonna go over my head. Like after investing 5 years of my life into that ridiculous little movie, like, yeah, I don't miss the thing when it comes up, and it's just one of these funny things because, like, I don't even mention it right now because my kids are too young for me to even talk about it. I'm not ready to have the talk with them yet, but I guess when they hold on, I got to turn off I was getting a notification. So I don't even talk about it much, but it's going to be funny when they come of age or when they find out that I've made this movie. Hopefully they don't find out through this podcast, Jay. Okay, hopefully they're not watching, but anyway, yeah, it's just going to be funny when they do. It'll be part of their sex ed, I guess. I don't know. I'm forgetting the question now. So got distracted thinking about my kids watching Orgasmo. It just my brain started melting, so.
Yeah, they're going to be thinking they're getting some boobs, but,
Yeah, no, exactly. The joke will be on them. That will be funny for me. Playing my own joke on my kids. They are Cannibal fans, and they've seen Electric Apricot once, but they need to watch it again. But yeah, someday they'll get to see that ridiculousness.
Well, this has been another amazing chat with you. I think officially we've talked for about 8 hours or something.
Okay, I know. I got to get back to work, Jay. I got to get off your Bleedcast to get back to work. But look, I had a great time talking to you and participating in the Bleedcast and dropping these old school stories. You're bringing some memories back to life that, I am going to read Les's script Frizzle Fry again because I haven't read that in a while. Anyway, but yeah, it's been fun dropping these old school stories on you. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for sending the DVD and for the get well card for my mom. I'm sure it was a very spadoinkle day for her.
I hope you're having a spadoinkle day listening to the Bleedcast.